This meeting is being recorded.
Wow, this is being recorded, isn't it? Good morning, everybody. Today is Saturday, January 29th, 2022. You are watching and/or listening to yet another edition of Forward Maryland. Steve, it is our 2021 end-of-year awards show. Who are you wearing today on the red carpet?
I am wearing Lamar Jackson in honor of this week's NFC AFC championship games, which don't involve the Baltimore Ravens, but I'm wearing this and hope that the Bengals don't win, because if you've ever heard their fans on Twitter, they are insufferable.
You would think that they had never won a football game before. And in point of fact, when they did win their first playoff game, the first text message ever written about a Bengals playoff win happened, because the last time the Bengals had won a playoff game was in 1990, and the first text message was sent in 1991.
Jesus.
So I wonder if friend of the podcast, Dr. James Howard, is aware of that factoid, and also Bengals fan, which may be another reason to root against Cincy tomorrow.
Go Chiefs.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. He's going for the Patrick Price.
Well, this is my Negro League.
Well, that is Kansas City Monarchs, right?
Yep, go Chiefs.
Well, it's good that you are also a baseball historian, because our third co-presenter today is not just a baseball historian and in more recent weeks and months a sports tout of some acclaim, but he is also the emeritus co-host of Forward Maryland, Jason Booms. Jason, say hi to the nice people.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you again. And I'm glad to be back.
Jason, so speaking of the games this week, who do you like?
Well, I will say this. I've got a certain sympathy going out to Matthew Stafford for all the years he endured in Detroit. And I'm sure he's as boggled as any Detroit fan would be in the fact that there's such a thing as January football. But I guess my sympathies go to the Rams right now. That's who I'm feeling, at least for the next game.
Okay, and then in the AFC.
I guess the Chiefs, most likely. I'll see what the line is.
Was that your betting wisdom kicking in, or is it just your fan sentiment?
That's fan sentiment. The actual dissection of the game will have to occur a little bit later. I'll see what the spread is. We'll go from there.
All right. Leaving stuff up for Boom's exclusive content view, people. Jason's learned.
Visit my Patreon.
Absolutely. Don't give away for free what you can make money off, Bones. So it is. So thank you for joining us. It's very great to see you. And let's get right into our 2021 awards. And so our first presenter is Jason. Jason, take the stage, please.
Well, I just want to say one thing. When I thought about sort of wrapping it up, encapsulating 2021, I think one of the big things we need to think about was probably best expressed actually going back to 1970 when Stephen Stills crafted the famous lines, well, there's a rose in the fisted glove, and the eagle flies with the dove, and if you can be with the one you love the one you're with. I think we can draw lessons from this. And several of the candidates, I think, running for governor of Maryland did make picks that seem to complement the skill set, bring something else to the table. And maybe if they're not even deeply enamored necessarily with who their running mate is, they've seemed to find a way to love the one they're with. And so that's going out to Baker Navarro, Francia Anderson Walker, Jane Hawkins Lights, King Siri, Moore and Miller. But it begs the question, of the remaining, who's the dance partner for Perez, for Gansler, for Newman, or Siegel or Barron? I mean, these are the key questions you need to ask. Are they having a hard time attracting someone because there's the writing on the wall? or is it merely just part of a deliberative process? And will the next picks be anyone from Howard County? There's a few folks that are public office holders I'm thinking about, women, Atterbury, Watson, Hill. I mean, these are all people that theoretically could get tapped for a number 2 slot. It'll be fun to watch in the next few weeks as those tickets are finalized.
So the Stephen Stills Award is awarded to the governor.
Anyone who has a running mate right now. At least everyone's got their chairs, but it's still musical chairs for the rest.
Well, Jason, if you look historically, Stephen Stills makes a lot of sense on a lot of levels. I mean, I'm thinking, Bush Quayle, Bush Cheney, maybe even Obama Biden. So this is certainly not an unheard of thing. And Mr. Stills apparently is politically prophetic because he's captured it very well.
Lord knows I live my life by what he writes.
Anyway, I believe the next award goes to you for your presentation.
Well, thank you, Bill. This is my first time, so hopefully I can be worthy of the tradition of Forward Maryland. But my first award is a tribute to the late, great Michael Leah Day, a.k.a. Meatloaf, who, amongst other people, left this planet recently. That seems to be a recurring theme these days, unfortunately. But anyway, the first song I remember as a child hearing from Meatloaf was 2 Out of 3 Ain't Bad. And if you know the lyrics, I want you, I need you, but there ain't no way I'm ever going to love you. Don't be sad. Not as good as my friend Jason here in reciting lyrics, but you get the picture. So, Meatloaf felt like 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But in the case of the Howard County Council, and in particular the Democrats on the Howard County Council, it's 2 out of 4. And 2 out of 4 kind of sort of sucks. I think maybe even before they were sworn into office, but certainly shortly thereafter, you have Team Walsh Young and you have Team Rigby Jones. And it has been the tag team match from political hell ever since day one, including, oh, by the way, this past week where there's now a Donnybrook over the Citizens Election Fund. And whether or not, in the words of my man from Jerry Maguire, you need to show Deb Young the money. And some ridiculous comments, including one from Team Rigby Jones referring to the ethics laws and whether or not they can even vote on the thing. And by the way, I give props to Liz Walsh saying, we vote on our salaries all the time. So it's just been a mess. And, I don't want to preview a later award, but it seems like somebody or several somebodies in leadership should have sat the children down and said, let's play nice in the sandbox. It seems to be our at least electeds in Howard County, a ship with no captain. So it's, maybe a couple of them won't be around next year and we'll actually have an effective group. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. No beef against Dave Youngman. I've met the guy, I know the guy, I have no issues with him. But when Dave Youngman's the adult in the room, you have a dysfunctional pile of crap. So there you go. 2 out of 4 really sucks. You were right. You could go up to 3, but once you get to 4, you got a problem.
So the Meatloaf Award goes to Howard County Council Democrats. Very good, Steve. Very good, Steve, for addressing the issue of dysfunction. But I will say there is a leader in the room, is there not?
Maybe there is. I think we don't have an answer to that question.
More opinion on that might be revealed.
Well, hopefully sooner than later, there'll be Paradise by the Dashboard Light.
If recent social media posts that suggest outreach to disaffected Democrats is any indication, perhaps that is being attempted. So I get the next presentation, just and I feel like Kevin Spacey singing Mind Games when he hosted the John Lennon tribute in 2010. Although Kevin Spacey's probably, I don't know, is it okay to say Kevin Spacey now? I mean, do we say Matt Lauer?
I think as long as we keep him off the show, because God knows he's been asking us to appear. As long as we
Well,
keep him
yes.
off,
I mean,
that's all right.
life is tough for Kevin lately. I mean, we know this. So, I mean, everybody needs a second chance, but I'm not sure that this is that time. So point taken, Jason. Let's leave Spacey out of our mouths. So I have, along the musical theme of this first round of awards, I have the They Shoot Horses, Don't They award, which is named after the famous 70s film starring Gig Young about a Midwestern dance marathon. And it was basically an American Graffiti ripoff in terms of teenage relationships, people going back and forth, finding their true selves under the guise and under the setting of a dance marathon. The They Shoot Horses, Don't They award goes to the Baltimore Sun. Baltimore Sun, don't go away angry, just go away. I'm a subscriber to the Baltimore Sun. I love the Baltimore Sun. I grew up on the Baltimore Sun back when they had columnists like Jack Germond, Jules Whitcover, Michael Olesker. Of course, they still have Dan Rodericks in a fashion. Jocks Kelly, who still writes for the Sun. John Stedman, the great sports writer. Bill Tanton. Maisel, Bob Maisel. To say it's a shadow, Tim Kirkjian. To say it's a shadow of its former self is insulting the shadows of their former self. I put a post on Facebook earlier in 21 about why do I even subscribe to this garbage anymore? And a Facebook friend who's a longtime reporter for the Howard County and the Baltimore Sun wrote back and mentioned that they won a local Pulitzer Prize for its coverage of the Catherine Pugh debacle. And okay, that's a fair point. However, any journalist could have done anything with that story and gotten a Pulitzer Prize. And it's not exactly like there was Woodward and Bernstein level investigation that went into that. I mean, this was questioning things that were on the public record. So I have to say, yeah, they have a Pulitzer, but I don't like paying $24 a month for all the copied off of wire service advice columns I could stand in my Sunday life column, or in my arts and entertainments section, or in my front page. I like reading opinion. I like reading commentary. I like knowing what's going on in the world. I don't like things that are copied and pasted from the LA Times, the Chicago Tribune, the New York Times, which I already also subscribe to, and many others. I know last year there was a drive to make the Baltimore Sun a nonprofit. One would have to wonder why that collapsed. It looked like it was going great guns, and then a major investor pulled out. And then it looks like the other investor is now trying to start something called the Baltimore Banner. I hope that person has good luck. I do believe that Baltimore is a major American city and is deserving of a major American newspaper, but the Baltimore Sun ain't it. As much as I would love to see it sustain, and as sad as I am, because there are a lot of great people who work for that newspaper, I would not shed much of a tear if 2022 were the year the sun sets.
Well expressed.
There. Is anybody unclear as to where I feel about this matter?
Yeah,
Jason,
girl,
Jason,
don't go away mad. Just go away. Little motley proof.
Jason, you have a very unique award. You're up.
Thank you. Well, this award, of course, the genesis of this award, for fans of The Office, may be aware of one Michael Scott, played lovingly by Stephen Carell for many years. And during the episode where it was featuring a roast of Mr. Scott, Jim Halpert came up with some of the classic lines that he used to say on the show, not knowing what they actually meant. One of them was spider face. Michael Scott apparently thought the phrase was cut off your nose to spider face, as opposed to spite her face. So I thought about who best fits that description in the state of Maryland, well, at the very least, Howard County. And there's only one organization that really came to mind that stood so head and shoulders above everyone else that they have all 4 or 5 of my nominee slots, and thus they win. And that would be the Progressive Democrats of Howard County, a well-known anti-housing organization. We see basically a collection of very interesting individuals over there. I think some more self-interested than others. Some of them a little bit off as far as their public pronouncements are concerned. Some of them like to apparently also play footsie with the People's Party of that's a nascent organization that is trying to be formed in a number of states. I give them this award primarily because of the fact they've done such a good job hammering Democrats who needs Republicans. And it's really been unfortunate. I mean, ever since the founding of this organization, which unfortunately I was roped into the unveiling when they decided to hijack a meeting of the Columbia Democratic Club. I think they made the announcement.
Yep. Yes.
And they did it not to, hey, here's an alternative. It was really intended to be, a thumb in the eye of the local Democratic Party. A lot of their comments have been rather vicious in going after local Democratic elected officials. There's one thing to hold someone accountable. There's one thing to promote a progressive agenda. But I think this organization is just so wound up into this anti-development world. And by the way, there are different ways to go after developers. I've got a few ideas at the national level as far as things I would like to see is in terms of taxation that would at least get the malefactors of great wealth down to middling wealth at best. But they have decided to go all in on the development issue to ignore most other policy issues. And just use that as a prism or the litmus test for how they feel an elected is performing. I don't think they add a whole lot to the conversation, quite frankly. I think what they're adding is similar to what any generic Republican would add. And frankly, I've had an exchange with the Republicans who talk about these new alliances that are forming. I can only imagine they might be talking about working with the Progressive Democrats. And as I said before, including to the Progressive Democrats, you should not have any red-brown coalitions. And here I'm talking about shirt colors. There's no sense in collaborating with the Republicans, even on development issues. It's lunacy. And the people that are over there at that organization, simply they don't know what they're doing, either because they're too stupid to understand what they're doing, or they understand what they're doing, but they're just malicious about it, allegedly. At least that's my take on it. So Progressive Democrats get the Spider Face Award.
Very well put, kind sir. Steve, our award show has taken a turn for the incisive. I believe you have I believe your next award may continue us in that vein, sir.
Yeah, my next award, and I'm we talked about it in the pre-show and had a title. I'm going to clean it up and go a little southern, and I'm going to call it the Child Please Award in honor of my grandmamas.
Thank you for that. I was thinking about that for a second.
Yeah, we'll go child please, and you can translate the child any way you want to, y'all. And it goes to white women voters. And by saying that, I am stripping off the veneer of suburban moms, suburban women voters. We all know who they're talking about, because if you watch CNN or MSNBC or Fox and you have a round table with these concerned suburban moms, I don't see anybody that looks like my mama on that show or in that interview or in that circle of people. So let's just call them what they are. Now, for a long time, people have talked about voting against one's own interests. And if there's any group that is symbolic of that, it is this group of voters. In 2016, I think it was 53 or 54% of y'all voted for a guy who shortly before the election told him where he'd want to grab you by. you know, I'm going to go a little ESPN here and say, come on, man. So you think, okay, maybe they learned, you know, a bunch of women, mostly white, put on your little pink hats. And in 2018, okay, you know, Pelosi got the gavel. It seemed like everything was going to be okay. Then here comes 2020. Not so much, because the numbers did not drop. You know, the numbers should have been like 30, but they were not, in terms of that block of voters who voted again to reelect a man who told you where he would grab you by, and oh, by the way, had been impeached and all that. So now I'm thinking, I'm losing faith, people. Come on, man. Well, then in 2021, not to be outdone, you send a guy named Glenn Youngkin, who had ever heard of this fool before he said he was going to run, to the governor's mansion, excuse me, I'm getting wound up here, in Virginia. How's that working out for you 2 weeks in? Now, maybe they're not voting against their own interests. Maybe you don't care about CRT because you want little Johnny and little Janie to have some whitewashed version of American history. Maybe you don't care about a woman's right to choose because y'all probably got enough money you can ship yourself or your kid off to California to get it done anyway. Maybe I'm all wrong with this voting against your own interest. But for some reason, like the Southern women of old who were the daughters of the whatever the fuck and stood side by side with the Klan to segregate this and burn crosses there and here and everywhere, y'all seem to be on that side of history. And if you look at the elections in Howard County in 2020, Bill, we talked about in, you know, Board of Ed in District 1, Board of Ed in District 4, I'm afraid we might have some of them up in here. Some of those ones who are showing up at board meetings now wanting to talk about books, waving signs that say reopen against redistricting because you say it's segregation. So maybe they're right here close to home. And Jason, my dear prophet, you said there was a path for a certain former county executive to reclaim his seat, and this might be part of his mix. So, child, please get it right.
Steve, you raise an excellent point. I just want to add one thought to it. You know, when it comes to like voting for or against the interest, it seems to me the interest that apparently trumps all is perceived interest based on race. I know a lot of people talk economics. You know, gender is definitely part of the conversation as well. But looking through the prism of the history of this country, it does really seem to be a case where people are putting race first in their deliberations and coming up with these sort of twisted policies that they find themselves voting for, despite the fact that it contravenes all available logic. You know, again, that goes to the power of race in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah.
As I am reminded at this point in our podcast of a story that was told, I believe, by Dolph Lundgren on the set of The Replacements, that in the gym and then on the set, that, you know, all of the action stars who had been recruited to be in this film, The Replacements, you know, that the weightlifting would become a competition. That he and then Sylvester Stallone and then Harrison Ford, well, maybe not so much Harrison Ford, but he mentioned Harrison Ford and Schwarzenegger and Stone Cold Steve Austin, Terry Crews, you know, would all go in there and just bang iron and just, you know, make it an internal competition to see who can get the most swole. Gentlemen, I believe we are demonstrating that we are swole in our brains, and that's a good thing.
By the way, Bill, there's a similar story, if you ever look it up, about the making of the film Predator, the original with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Same thing.
Oh, yes, with Jesse Ventura, Schwarzenegger. I forget who else was in that.
Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers was in that. I forgot Carl Weathers was in that. Mm-hmm. So I the next award goes to me. And this award kind of connects my other two awards, the one I've given and the one I have yet to come. This award is the Worst Coverage Ever award, and that goes to all Maryland media. It goes to podcasters, even ourselves, It goes to news media, it goes to television, it goes to radio, it goes to film strips, it goes to carrier pigeons, any media source that is available in the state of Maryland. Even ones that may have won awards from newspapers or magazines are art. And that goes to the lack of coverage for any of the following scandals of the Larry Hogan administration, to which, if any Democrat, and woe to have been to Martin O'Malley, possibly Bob Ehrlich, but certainly Paris Glendening or William Donald Schaefer or any prior Maryland governor, any one of these five would have been daily meat, red meat, in any media source, from the Baltimore Sun, the Washington Post, down to the Cecil Whig itself. So, to wit, the South Korean COVID tests, 500,000 of which were purchased through connections of the First Lady of Maryland. But yet they disappeared. Many of them, most of them, were deemed unusable. Where are they? Did we get a refund? Did we get our money back on tests that were unusable? Why the procurement? Well, of course, we understand why the procurement process was circumvented due to the public health crisis. But what has gone into even these emergency situations to make sure that such a reckless, feckless purchase doesn't happen again? We don't know, and we probably never will. The payout to the former governor's chief of staff after he left due to his comments and his behaviors. The governor did answer questions about that. I remember he got surly whirly girly about it after one of his COVID updates in the spring, I do believe. But what he said did not exactly settle the issue. He basically said it's all just trumped up media charges based in the news media, in the mainstream media. So, for being so far supposedly a counterweight to Donald Trump, he surely sounds like Donald Trump when he has a complaint. But where does that go? We don't know. Something that has been an issue for over a year, the unemployment insurance website in the state of Maryland, especially when during the pandemic, there were millions upon millions of hits to that website from hundreds of thousands of people who needed to access unemployment insurance because we lost hundreds of thousands of jobs. Yet even to file for unemployment insurance now for those who find themselves between jobs, it winds up being an incredibly bureaucratic and time-consuming and a personal hassle to people. Where is the fix for that? Has the performance changed? We don't know. Is anybody following it? Nope. So there's another one. The Purple Line. Contracts were just re-signed to build the Purple Line. I believe I saw in the media last week that the cost of the Purple Line was originally going to be $5.6 billion. It is now up to $9.3 billion. So that is about a 70% markup. If my math in my head does me good, I think 65%, 70%. That's disgusting. Why? It can't just be because of the supply chain and because it's years later and there's the pandemic. There has to be more to it. What's inside it? We don't know, and we probably never will know. And then last, this was something that was scarcely reported. I mean, it was reported in the Washington Post, but without a ton of follow-up. In fact, without any follow-up. The fact that the governor is still connected to, I believe, around 300 companies that are owned or managed by, I believe, his brother or by other family members, and that many of those companies do business with the state of Maryland. I mean, these companies interlock their shells inside each other. They're kind of Ponzi schemes of the Trump variety, where the Trump organization and its management of high rises would own the leasing company. So the leasing company would charge rent to people. It also owned a company that supplied appliances. So it went out and bought appliances at less than wholesale, sold them at least retail, if not marked up, and then would turn the profit also on the increased rent because of the new appliances. So nice scheme there. The Hogan companies follow a similar path, but yet has anybody really taken the time to check? Anybody really taken the time to see how all of this has filled the governor's pockets, which certainly seems like Larry's not doing too badly since he just bought a nice new home. So it seems like he's doing pretty well off of his governor's salary. Anybody checking out any of that? They're not. So Maryland media, you got a big job. You got a big job ahead of you. But you did not, in all fairness, you did not have just one job. And that's coming up.
Fair enough.
Jason, I see I have taken enough time up during my rant for you to change outfits as you're going for your last award of the night. So over to you, sir.
Yeah, I was actually, I think I was momentarily thinking in slow motion. It might have been that scene from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas where Hunter accidentally had some acid on his sleeve and Flea comes out and, wants to help him take care of all that. But as far as...
We do not advocate the use of any illegal drugs here on Forward Maryland, people. But spare acid would be a mixed blessing.
But I was going to say something about how some of these people could benefit. But anyway, so if you take a look at those, it might be involved in a slow motion party switch. 5 names really came to mind. The first is Tulsi Gabbard. Formerly a nominee or a candidate for the Democratic nomination for president. We've seen her drift fairly steadily to the right over the past couple of years, quite frankly, as far as positioning is concerned. Definitely doesn't sound like any Democrat that I've ever heard of, occupying a very unusual space on the spectrum. So I'm not sure if we can necessarily, and she's been bad historically on issues such as marriage equality. So perhaps we shouldn't be surprised that Tulsi Gabbard has taken the turn that she has. And a couple other cases I can think about of other high-profile folks. Joe Manchin from West Virginia, senator, definitely holds a critical spot in the Senate as far as being a power broker is concerned. Is he necessarily looking to switch to the Republican Party? Who knows? And frankly, doesn't need to right now. But what will the next Congress technically look like, depending on how it falls out? Will there be pressure on him to switch over if there's a sufficient number of Democrats around to sort of force the issue, and that he would be possibly again the deciding vote? Another vote is Kirsten Sinema, or Chrissy Chris Sinema, however you want to call her, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And here we have someone who, from her little curtsy and her little thumbs down nonsense, extremely suspect. Believes she'll be some nominee for something in 2024. I can't imagine what. And I think a little bit delusional. But again, this could be all part of a larger plan where she switches parties, who knows. But I really want to single out for the award 2 potential candidates. I think either one would be very qualified for the role. I do have one winner. The runner-up is John Weinstein. Now, those of you who may have lived for a while in Howard County may be familiar with Mr. Weinstein. He held the 1st County Council District for 1 term. Nice enough guy. I just kind of wished I had a time machine and go back to 2014 and vote for Wendy Royalty, but that's by the by. Yeah, Wendy's great. But John, looking, apparently it looks like it's almost flipping back to the Republican Party, where I know he had some previous connections. So there's that. But the candidate who really stood out for me was Praveen Pennuri, our own magic man, probably best known for working some of his shows where he does his magic. And beyond that, he's said a lot of things recently about identity politics. He said a lot of things that frankly don't sound at all like a Democrat. It does sound like someone who very much wants to be, Democrats for Kittleman or something along those lines. Because as the narrative sort of creeps every day, more of his comments are more like attacks on Democrats than Democratic Party. I would not be surprised at all if Praveen made the switch, within the next couple months, quite frankly, to take a position with the Kittleman folks. So I give it to Praveen. Yay.
I have to admit, I did recently read the campaign tome of that latter person's run for Board of Education. 1,246 Howard Countyans can't be wrong, and it was riveting.
Well, between that and his runs for the Central Committee, I mean, the guy's dedicated. I'm not sure what, but he's dedicated to something. And I'm not sure what that's worth, but and maybe not much at all. But it'll be fun to see how his career shapes up if this is indeed the path he's going in.
Yeah, and also somebody who took a couple of pot shots at this very podcast through a couple of Facebook accounts over the summer. So, like Pepperidge Farm, we remember. Well done,
threats
sir.
At all. They're not
That's
threats.
right. Steve, over to you for your last award of the evening.
Well, you guys kind of teed up my last award. And, for those of you who've seen, Bill and I work this podcast, you know that we are old school, longtime fans of professional wrestling. And if you thought you were going to get out of this show without some tie or reference to professional wrestling, you're wrong, because here it comes. The good old JR Award in honor of the man himself, Jim Ross, Big Jim, Oklahoma Jim, Boomer Sooner Jim, goes to Alan Kittleman, former county executive of Howard County and hoping to be next county executive of Howard County. And a quick lead up for those of you who are not like Bill and I and watch wrestling. Every once in a while, the champion, usually a heel or bad guy, gets in the ring and says, I am the greatest and nobody will challenge me. Is there anybody in the back who has the guts to come out here and challenge me? So picture this time last year. The Republican Party in Howard County is, as it's been for a pretty good while, a bit of a mess. Got a couple of candidates out west, but not much else. And you start thinking, and maybe one county executive, Dr. Calvin Ball, is thinking this, it's going to be a walkover. There's nobody to challenge. There are some, names that are laughable, names you never heard of. There was nothing going on. Now, I don't want you guys to get the mental image of Calvin Ball in the middle of a ring in his best spandex. Don't go there. But imagine him asking, are there any of you bums in the back that have the guts to challenge me? And then all of a sudden, over the loudspeaker, you hear those three words: proven, independent, leader. And as he comes rolling out, here comes good old JR. My God, it's Alan Kittleman's music. I can't even finish this.
What is Alan Kittleman's music, by the way? What
I
is
didn't
it?
take it through that far.
Is it
Maybe
Devil
we'll
Went
turn it
Down to
back.
Georgia? Is it Jesus? Is it Everything is Beautiful from B.J. Thomas?
I'll go with Return of the Mac by Mark Morrison.
Is it Heather the Dog by Nazareth?
These boots are made for walking.
Yeah, for Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica, maybe. I don't know. But,
Oh, dear Lord.
but there you go. The good old JR Award for 2021. Former and who the hell knows, maybe future county executive Alan Kittleman. I'm out.
Oh, okay.
I can't even finish this.
It's a statement.
I'm still back on what that music would be like. Would it be like a choir of angels? Would it be the Chapelgate Community Church choir?
Hey, maybe Gold Dust theme music. If you remember Gold Dust. Very operatic, and now you can imagine Alan Kilman with his stick.
Oh, heavens.
There's always Europe with Final Countdown.
Oh, hey, there you go.
Well,
that song is just annoying enough to be in on brand.
Well, Steve, that was. I don't know. I mean, originally I put you next to last for a reason, but wow, I'm not sure I could beat this one. That was good. For my last award of the evening, or really it's morning, but I'm saying evening. My last award is the You Had One Job Award, meaning, something that was so obvious. It was such a tap in. It was such a 6-inch putt, such a layup. It was supposed to be easy. There was a mandate. Something was clear as day, but through your actions, you made it not so clear. And that award goes to Howard County Executive Calvin Ball, who very closely nosed out Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman for this award, because Mr. Pittman at least has a little bit of a much purpler county to deal with in Anne Arundel. Dr. Ball's situation was slightly different. I almost called this award the What Does God Need with a Starship Award, after a noted line in Star Trek V. There's a question I've been asking all year, and in fact for the last 2+ years on social media, when some of my progressive and liberal and blue colleagues will get on certain Democratic council members for their lack of support of certain development projects. And that question is, why does our county executive need the chair of the Howard County Trump campaign to be the third vote on many development projects in Howard County when we have a 4-to-1 majority? That question has always been ignored and unanswered. Now, some people will, give me a little press of the like button, or maybe a good point, Bill, but nobody really seems to have a good explanation for this. Nobody who works in the George Howard building is a sociopath. I like Calvin Ball. He has been a friend of mine for 30 years. And if you look at the latest campaign finance report, you will see my name as a contributor of his within the last year. I support his reelection, and nothing I'm about to say is going to change that. However, we have missed, as Howard Countyans, and especially as progressive Howard Countyans, a terrific opportunity in this county. An opportunity where we saw 4 Democratic county council members elected in 2018, a Democratic county executive, which should have created a system of governance in which Democrats would run Howard County for the next 20 years, over the next 2 redistrictings, and put in place all sorts of progressive principles that can indeed hold Howard County up as a model of social and economic justice. We have failed to do that. We have failed to do that due to alliances with what I call a developer compliant agenda. So development in Howard County is the industry of Howard County, despite what all those who love schools and, police protection and the like claim. Howard County is a land use county, always has been, still seems to continue to be true. So, do we need development in Howard County? Absolutely, we do. Do we need a developer community in Howard County? Absolutely, we do. Do these developers in Howard County, should they have a role in participating in business here? Yes, they should. However, it is a system where there is a very limited number of players. Monopoly is fun to play with two, but it's much better when you have 4 or 6 at the board. And that's how the development system in Howard County works. There are only a few law firms who work development land use cases in Howard County. To my knowledge, I believe there's only one engineering firm that works with the Department of Planning and Zoning. There are only several builders and several developers. Development in Howard County is not open to all comers. And in that case, we don't get the best deals. We don't get the best prices. We don't get the best rates. And also legislative changes to increase developer fees. Yes, we did do a little bit of a good job about this in the last cycle. With legislation on, I believe, the recordation fee and also on the per square footage fee that developers pay. Well, we still fall far behind neighboring jurisdictions in this area. So why do we have a developer compliant agenda? We have a developer compliant agenda because developers give campaign cash. Be they residential developers, be they commercial developers, such as the Costello company that just gave us the Columbia Lake House Hotel, that also has been fraught with controversy over their lack of support for organized labor. Be it the folks who manage the company It's My Amphitheater, the subset of the company IMP that manages concerts based out of DC, and their CEO, who had his own set of serious legal issues recently, and then their local outfit that manages Meriwether Post Pavilion and also has embroiled itself in numerous disputes with other organizations and institutions in the area, including small arts nonprofits. So, we seem to be, as a county administration, beholden to these people, as if we offend them, they're going to go away and they're going to support someone else. And frankly, my response to that is, who cares if they do? Because my belief is that there are many other players who would love to have a seat at the board of Howard County-opoly, and we don't do them. Plus, and so what does this result in? It was mentioned earlier during an earlier presentation about a focus on housing. It results in poor products in terms, and poor proposals in terms of affordable housing. We shouldn't have ridiculous proposals that are argued all over the community about housing developments that have 90 homes and 12 of them are for families that earn $60,000 or less. $60,000 is still a good salary. And 10%, 15%, are you kidding me? Where is the vision? Where is the boldness? Where are the 50% affordable housing communities? Where are the 100% affordable housing communities? If we are to be indeed progressives and say that we are for social and economic justice, we have to be better. We have to think bigger. We have to think bolder. But we are not doing this. Instead, we are happy with a little tiny piece of the pie and say, can we have some more? And slap ourselves on the back for our ingenuity. And we should not award ourselves such, because as progressives, we're not doing things here that are all that virtuous. We're not thinking about the public good. We are not thinking bolder and bigger. And that was why that was the opportunity lost by fomenting anger, discussion, not discussion, dismay, discord amongst the Howard County Council. And I don't think, and to the extent that County Executive Ball is responsible for that, he has to be accountable for that. Is it enough for me not to support him for re-election? Of course not. The Democratic challenger, Slow Growth, is a clown. And don't even get me started about the Howard County Republican Party. It's been said a lot during this podcast. They are not just bereft of ideas, not just bereft of vision, they are bereft of morals. However, what has happened is a situation has been created, an environment has been created where these people have a chance to be successful. And to bring back Alan Kittleman, a nice guy, but also not a visionary. And during his 4 years as county executive, one could argue that he was even more friendly to development than the current county executive is. That would be a horrific, tremendous mistake. So can this be righted? I don't know how. There are challengers to the incumbent county council members in districts 1 and 4. So I'm not, fairly well known in political circles that both of those candidates, of those major challengers, are supported by interests friendly with the development community in Howard County and the development community itself. I looked at the campaign finance report of the challenger in District 1 and saw General Growth Properties and Howard Hughes Corporation and a host of our favorite development stars involved in that person's report. So it's hard to say that this can be righted. There are also a lot of people, we spoke before about race being the determining factor in many of these recent elections. But economics is still up there too. Many people of color in certain parts of the county who are Democrats, who are also of means, who are also now ticked off at this county executive for his position on school redistricting. Now, do I think that that's Calvin Ball's fault? Absolutely not. Those people can go away as far as I'm concerned. But sure enough, like an ambulance chasing attorney, the Republican former county executive is chugging in right after saying, oh, I never do such a thing, where we all know he wouldn't a heartbeat. So we need to, we had an opportunity in Howard County where our county executive could do something that's not possible with Democrats on the state level, and as we're seeing the federal level, which is truly bring unity amongst the various progressive activists and actually more so provide great service for the citizens. There have been many things that have been positive with this administration, but that this administration did not embrace the political opportunity afforded it by its 4-1 majority was a serious error. Let's just hope it's not a fatal one.
Very well said.
Yeah, a lot there, Bill. A lot there to unpack. I mean, I think we could have a altogether separate podcast that does a deep dive on the issue of development and its how big of a factor it is in decisions made by our elected officials. I would even go up to the state level in terms of some of our representatives to the House of Delegates, the state Senate. Following the money is always a good thing, and I would include in that. I mean, you noted a couple of new candidates, but I would also note some incumbents who this year decided to get into the Citizens Election Fund. Look at their 2018 numbers. You'll see some familiar faces there as well. their switch to the fund, I think some of it was political expediency. Some of it was, because they could, being completely unopposed, they didn't have to worry about raising a whole lot of money. So I think that following the money is never a bad way to figure out where those ties are. But whole other podcast on the state of the Howard County Democratic Party from leadership on down, and the whole issue of development and how it factors into so much of our life here. So good stuff, though.
Well, then our former county executive who vetoed the Citizens Election Fund is now one of those championing its disbursement. And honestly, the disbursement should be made, but the disingenuous there, while he does not also regret his veto, I believe my term is puts this guy one red nose away from a clown. So
I just want to chime with one thing that's I think worth noting, and this is just putting a fine point on it. You did recognize that in districts 1 and 4, you've got 2 Democratic incumbents who are generally seen as being more of the anti-development side of things. And they both have primaries, but 2 and 3, the seats held by Rigby and Jones, Dr. Jones, that they don't have any primary challenges right now, and yet they're the ones that are perceived to be the more friendly pro-development Democrats on the council. I don't think that's a coincidence. Now, maybe someone might jump in the race, or both of those races, who may have a different agenda, but it is interesting that people in 1 and 4 were able to get relatively early starts, particularly in District 1, on the assumption that they could probably raise a decent amount of money, which I recall she has. The other thing, too, is I just want to say that, and I've had this conversation with some folks before, you don't need the developer money. I mean, I understand if you're looking down the road and wanting to build relationships, you may feel as though you have to take developer money at some point. But if you're running for county council in Howard County, you do not need developer money. You don't need it for the primary, you don't need it for the general. So I think those candidates who are trying to be a bit cute about it, I think they're being disingenuous. And I do believe perhaps that's the one good thing that's come out of this cycle is the pledge not to take developer money. Now, I may quibble about the exact way it's written. I may say it's not the most creative, inventive thing you've ever seen because, there's always Grover Norquist's tax pledge. But anything that keeps folks accountable, I think it might be a useful tool in this case. And it's disappointing more Democrats can't find a way to sign it.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I would say on that pledge, it's almost 6 degrees of developer. I mean, if you read that pledge, it's like, well, you can't take money from a developer. You can't take money from a law firm of a developer. You can't take money from anybody who works from a law firm for a developer. You almost feel like you can't take money from the mother's cousin's uncle's brother of a lawyer who works at a firm who happens to do one job for a developer. I mean, you're right. I mean, it was perhaps one of the most inartful documents I've ever seen. I mean, there are ways to just say, to your point, I'm not taking money from a developer or from a firm that represents a developer. But if there's somebody working at the firm that's an old buddy of yours that just wants to give you money because you're old buddies, I don't see where that is a violation if it's just 2 people who've known each other forever. So I think as with most things in the anti-developer community, and you talked about it earlier with certain individuals and certain groups, they take it too far. I've always maintained that the answer in terms of development in Howard County is somewhere between the 2 extremes that seem to dominate the conversation. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, nobody, and maybe Bill, this is to you have one job point. There's nobody willing to stand in that breach and say, both of y'all are wrong. It's somewhere in here. So that would be my only take on that.
It's, I want to I love this discussion, and I guess I will shut up on this point at least. The same people who have been active in the development community here have been active for decades. I mean, the same developers, the same builders, the same lawyers. Will opening it up make them go away? No. They're still going to have their practices. They're still going to have their business. Could they get their income cut into? Yeah, because they're not, they may not get as big a share of what they're used to off of living off of the Howard County Development Dole. So I don't shed any tears for our development community. I mean, they are, like I said, they have a purpose, but to say that to, create restrictions, moratoriums, to protect our it will hurt Howard County is ridiculous. We're not talking about any NIMBYism. We're not talking about people just talking, just going to protect their home values. And there are some of those people out there. There are some of those people who, their anti-development stances because they don't want people who look like them or people who speak different languages than them. I'm not disputing that or discounting that one bit. What I am saying is that the people who were elected in 2018 got elected for reasons. They should have been listened to. And in terms of the bigger and the greater good, and instead of, and to be able to have created something in Howard County, which really would make this place truly an exceptional place. Not the faux exceptionalism that a lot of people on those school news groups on Facebook keep pounding their chests over because, they can afford an $800,000 McMansion that looks stupid on a postage stamp of land. They can thump their chests about being in a certain high school district that's colors are blue and gold, or orange and blue, or sometimes green and white. And y'all and Howard County people know the ones I'm talking about.
Well, I don't know about. Well, I'd have to figure out which orange and blue one. If it's one I'm thinking about, maybe
the one
not
in the South. There's only one.
Okay. The other ones you're absolutely correct about. But the other thing I'll just put out here, Bill, you talked about people getting elected for a reason. I would maintain that only one member of the county council got elected for that, or maybe even any compelling reason. You could argue the other four got elected by default.
Well, the one in the first district, yes.
Well, that's where I'm going. Yeah, I mean, there was a very clear reason why that person is sitting in that chair. I don't know that there's a compelling reason why the other four are there, except for the fact that they were there.
Yeah.
Well, and if the former councilman had gotten reelected, would he have a primary challenger against him in this cycle in 2022? I say yes.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah. It would be an interesting question because you wouldn't see some of the conversations that you've had over the last 4 years. I think the current member has raised and given voice to that conversation and to that side of the argument. So, maybe not. Maybe we wouldn't have had some of the rocky road because we would have had, a solid block of 3+1 that went a certain way, and who knows. So it'll be interesting to see what that dynamic would have looked like. And quite frankly, I wonder if the council member of 4 would have stood in the breach by herself, or if it was only because there was a partner there to align with. So I think that that difference in District 1, I think changed and continues to change everything.
Yeah. Truth to that. Gentlemen, this has been an honor today.
Yeah.
I think we also kept away from anything that would get ourselves sued. We never even talked about that other former candidate with the lawsuits.
Sorry.
And we shan't.
Can't hear.
No, I can't hear a thing. Jason, it's a pleasure seeing you.
Absolutely.
It was a delight being back.
Steve, always lovely. I have a couple minutes of the post show that you won't hear, viewers and listeners. Aren't you sad? But you have been watching or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. We'll be coming right back at you next week. Until then, Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.